we have gone to bid for health insurance before. Never as self-funded, but still. Other questions, thoughts? Is there a deadline that you need a decision made on this? I mean, is it to effect July 9?
Yeah.
Okay.
There really isn't too much we can do, so
Yeah.
not having that approval, we could just push it out to the 26th, and
Yeah.
we can't shop it.
Right.
We could change the deductibles, but we can't say.
Additional questions, thoughts? Seeing no's? Alright, well, that'll bring us to item 3, which is administrative and department reports, admin reports. Let's start with, Bob, are you reporting?
I'm reporting.
Alright, let's start with Bob in the corner.
So I'm just going to review a couple things with the board tonight. One, the grade level move, it went awesome. I knew it would. The guys took care of it, and I just stayed out of the way. They got it handled. A huge shout out to the staff. They had things ready for the guys to move, and in a lot of cases, the staff moved the stuff themselves. So it went really smooth. I had no doubt. I know there are people looking at it thinking, oh my gosh, what an undertaking, but I knew the guys would take care of it, and they got it done. Our summer maintenance list, the things I reported on in my last report, projects are moving along fine and are on schedule. I'm not going to review them all unless you want me to now tonight. If you got questions about individual maintenance projects, I can, but there's a list that I shared with the board last time. Elementary school building needs, projects are scheduled and with the goal of having them completed by the time the kids come back, and that's a secure entrance upgrade. That's replacing 1 or 2 boilers, replacing the HVAC air compressor, and doing roof maintenance. Something that Becky and Shannon and I were talking about was working on the long-range facility plan. We've always had one. I've had one, but it's not very user-friendly. So Becky, Shannon, April, Adam, and myself have been trying to make it user-friendly so that when the public and when the board wants to look at it, they can understand it, and not a lot of explanation going to it. And in the future, what it'll do, we're listing every specific type of equipment that we have within a certain dollar range. So the stuff that we can repair with our regular budget, we're leaving those things off our list. These are bigger ticket items. And we're actually putting the equipment name and how big it is so that if we send it out, say every 2 or 3 years, we want to update the price on equipment because everything gets more expensive. We get more accurate reporting that way. We've been working on that, and hopefully I have that completed before I'm done. That's what the goal is.
We're creating this because Bob started Becky calling saying, so tell me more about this, so tell me more about that. So now we have it, in a way, and what's really awesome is it's showing when it's usable, when we need to start considering that it could be near the end of its life, and then when it should be at the end of its life, so then we can plan for that. Not that you can plan for a $350,000 replacement, but at least we see it on our radar every time.
No different than we would our house. You know that the life of your roof is 20 years.
Yep.
You're 15, you're gonna put, the feelers out, and it may last till 30, but it's on your price.
Yes.
Right.
So, I don't know, April, if you can spell it, but how much of the other stuff is covered within the building budget? And then how are we funding some of those bigger ticket items?
So typically, Jen, the way we've done the maintenance in the spring is knowing that we don't try and spend a lot on maintenance, on unneeded maintenance at the beginning of the school year. I don't want to say unneeded maintenance, it's not the right term, but maybe it's that kid weight, it isn't critical. We try and wait to spend money until the end of the year in case we have something go out during the year that we have to replace. We don't want to spend our budget right away. So in the spring of the year, knowing that we've saved projects all year long, then we go through and make a list and prioritize. The list is bigger than that, but this is a prioritized item list. And we use money based that's left out of my budget, and then if there's money other places in the district, and we decide that we have to replace a water heater, more important than doing something else somewhere else, money can be shifted, but basically it's money left in my budget.
So that takes care of like the stuff at the district and the few things there at the middle school and high school. But what about the tuck pointing, cause that's pretty expensive.
That came out of my maintenance budget, so what we're doing, instead of doing, we're doing within our budget. We figured so much money per year per building. So it's like doing the roof repair, we figured so many square feet per year that we can do on roofs, and that's what we do. Instead of trying to do a whole building, we're taking them by chunks. They were telling us the worst parts, they're fixing that first. So every year we'll spend $20,000 on the high school, knowing that in 5 years, hopefully they'll take care of that building.
So I'm assuming all the stuff above where it says the elementary school needs are being paid for out of your maintenance budget?
Which is elementary school, the two objects there are coming out of my elementary school, or out of our maintenance budget.
That's,
Below that, it's coming out of another fund that Shannon and Becky can talk about, but it isn't coming directly out of my yearly budget.
a secured entrance.
Upgrade,
And the two boilers are coming out?
one
of your-
boiler.
Is coming out of your budget?
No, those are just coming from some things that we went through throughout the year, so we were watching. That's kind of about saying, like, we're to the point now where obviously we don't have staff in keeping the building spending supplies, right? Because they bought other medicine, we're looking at those funds to see what we have left over and then we're allocating them to the needs that we have.
And the other thing I just have to ask, because it's been talked about for years, the freezer at the high school.
Yep, that's in the works, check, yeah, we're working
Oh,
on
am I
it.
gonna spoil this?
Yeah.
Bigger project than that. That's been a thing for others.
And that's getting taken care of, so, and the goal is to have that done by August 1st.
Understood.
And the last one I have to talk about tonight is we hired a custodian, Jen. Susan, she was the lead cook at the high school. She's worked for me for 3 or 4 summers, and she is a rock star of an employee. So it's a big loss for food service. It's a win for the custodian department. She gets along so well with kids. She's gonna be a great addition for our day shift.
Buildings and ground director.
Yeah, so that'll come on the consent agenda, but we were able to hire that. But of course, once that's through tonight, that'll be an official hire, we're really excited.
Thanks, Bob.
Yeah.
Thanks for everything and filling in as needed and being you. Amazing. All
Always
right.
agreed to sit on mentor.
Yay. See. Nice. He's got nothing else to do. All right, Julie Bender, kick us off with admin reports.
Okay, just a couple things, and I also have my building report thing too. So, going right off of, Bob, huge shout out to the custodians, and yes, the staff as well, but, I mean, the custodians, the way that they showed teamwork and had that truck and trailer and all their things, like, they did this reconfiguration in like 72 hours, maybe. I mean, I just kind of stood back and watched, but it was great. It was amazing to see. So, shout out there. Summer school, both up and running at OES and OIS. Numbers changed just slightly this week. We had a few students decide not to come anymore at the elementary school, so we're at 179 at the elementary school and 184 at the intermediate school. Those numbers are still up. They're pretty high compared to other years, so it's exciting that kids want to come, staff are having a good time. Yes, it's rained a couple days, which puts a little damper on things, but it's okay. Another shout out for Belinda, Trisha, Holly, and Tara for all of their hard work that goes into planning and preparing for summer school, the end of the year, just all the things. Even just the 4 of them, how they're calling back and forth and working as a team and having patience with me as I'm going back and forth. They're 4 very strong, amazing people, so thank you to them. And then, yeah, we ended the year strong, both buildings. Mix of emotions from reflecting on all of our accomplishments, our challenges, all the positives, all the gratitude and hard work, to yet sadness for some of the departures, and, you know, everybody's still remaining with lots of hope for what the future is gonna bring. So it's the end of the year, we're looking ahead, and here we go. So thank you to all the 4K5 staff for keeping everything positive and having that growth mindset throughout this year. And soon it's gonna be called the 4K4 staff. And now I have just some things to talk about with data. And I will go super fast, even though it's very exciting, to talk about data, because here's the nerd in me coming out. So here we go. In the fall, we talked about the building goals, the academic goals. Really looking at the map data. So again, when we look at the map data, we are looking at that 70th percentile and higher is what we are assuming is more correlates with the forward exam, to where we are looking at grade level. So is it anywhere between that 60th percentile and 70th? Probably, but we're aiming high. So those are our goals. And then here's where we are at. So what this means right now is the result over in green is how many students actually scored at or above that 70th percentile. So if you look at the one in yellow, okay, it was our goal to get 80% of the ones that were below that, and the 80% was 52 students, so I'm looking at third grade right now, and we hit 30, does that say 31? 31. This is just really small, so I don't know why I did it. So we hit 31 students. I have lots of different ways that you guys are gonna see this. Okay, so for fourth grade, 80% of that 74, it was 59 students, we hit 26 students at or above 70th percentile. And then for fifth grade, you can see in yellow, our goal was 48, and we were able to get 29 students out of that 48. So that's kind of one way to look at it, and that right there is for EOA. So the next one you're gonna see is for math, so same goal. And then for math, in third grade, okay, there are 55 students sitting in that spot, 39 of them we were able to get. Out of the 61, we were able to get 32 for fourth grade, and then fifth grade, out of the 46 students sitting there, we were able to get 38. So exciting stuff. We're growing kids, and then if we keep going, this is a whole nother way of looking at it. Because once I dig, it just keeps going and going and going. So what I put on here this year is looking at what it truly means to go from spring to spring. Okay, this is something that Becky has taught all of us principals, is really looking at that full yearly growth of the whole child, going from spring to spring. Instead of just always comparing fall to spring, you look at that whole year. And I kind of put bullet points on there and why that is just so important. So when you look at this, this is all coming from our map data. Out of 105 students tested for both terms is what I wrote, because I had to take the exact same students who were here in the spring and in the spring last year at 2023, otherwise this wouldn't make any sense. So out of those 105 students, 41 of those students met that growth projection that is put out by NWA MAP. And what that means is it's they're predicting where their growth should be to get them where they need to be as the years go on. So 41 students met that in fourth grade EOA. And then when you look down from our spring 2024 data, the ones that are at or above, and now this time I use the 60th percentile so you can see the difference there. It's a matter of like 4 to 5 kids within that range of the percentile. So 42 students, which means we're looking at 43% of all fourth graders. We're sitting there for our EOA. Fifth grade, out of the 87 students, and again, that number is low because I took the ones who were here for both springs. And then 45 out of those 87 who were here for both met that growth projection. So that when you dig into that map data, when you like look at what that growth projection like that's a huge celebration right there, and that's also now looking at our like state report card and forward exam and all those things. Sometimes the more growth you have, I mean, that's all that we can ask for, is that we're actually growing kids. So super exciting. And then looking at Brooke.
Question.
Yep.
So when you say fifth grade ELA, that's looking at the same group spring in 2023?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
I assumed, but I wanted to make sure.
Yep.
I was understanding.
Great question.
Not the fifth graders of each year.
Correct.
Right.
Yep.
Thanks.
So that's why, yeah, it's the same students in both, yeah. And then 50 students we were able to get out of our fourth graders in ELA that were at or above that 60th percentile. Okay, and then the next slide is the exact same thing but with math. And again, like when you look at that highlighted piece, like it's pretty exciting to know that they've met that. And also with that growth projection, that's how teachers can set goals for kids and like actually talk to kids and explain to them what this means and what they're aiming for and all the cool things with map data. So 49 students, and then you're looking at 45 students are at or above that 60th percentile. And then for our 5th grade math, out of those 93, 41 hit that growth projection, and then we're at 50 students again. Now there's a whole nother thing. Yep.
So the beauty of the growth projection would be the percentile is set across the state,
Yep.
where they should be. But realizing that these groups were kindergarten and 1st grade at the start of the pandemic, we might not be hitting those statewide,
Yep.
but we're still growing them
Yes.
from where they were to where, and that's huge, especially in all grades, but especially in some of these
Yes.
core developing skills as,
Big time.
yeah.
And the thing here, that growth projection, that doesn't always mean that they're at grade level, but they, from where they're at and where they're growing, like, it's what's predicted through math. So, I mean, out of all of those 4th graders in math, where 49 hit that, I mean, it's a big deal. Do we want that number higher? Always.
Yes.
And this is the nation, not the state.
Oh.
So beautiful.
Oh, thank you, Becky.
Yes, beautiful.
Okay, and then, so now 3rd grade, the reason why 3rd grade looks different is because 2nd grade did not take math, so I had nothing to compare it to, but that is gonna be different now in the future, because 2nd grade will do that. But I just wanted you to see this, because our 3rd grade teachers, rocked it, and you can see fall versus spring, both for ELA and math. So fall's at the top, where 36% were at or above grade level, spring 49%. So that's what our ELA teachers were able to do for our 3rd graders. And then look at that rockstar math team we have for 3rd grade, where 3rd graders came in at 35% were at or above, and now it's 65 of them are at or above. So it's pretty cool. I could hear them like screaming and cheering as map scores were coming in, so they knew this. It's pretty neat. So, yay. And then I'm like, oh, let's keep going. So our target groups. This was predicted. This comes from like WASB, from all the crazy equation thingies that I don't really know. I just go by what they say. But what this means are these are the number of kids that were hit and given to us that they're in our target groups. We need to make sure we're doing something for them. A lot of these students in these groups are on IEPs, or they're at least in like a tier 3 intervention. So that's one of those things that, like, even Act 20 is pushing and doing all these things. We're already doing this, which is very exciting that we're already catching these kids. But now look at this. So in 4th grade, our target group, so our ELA group of our Super Bowl learners, there were 23 of them. 20 of them grew. Ha! Isn't that cool? And then when you look at our 5th grade ELA, there was 28 in that group, and 22 of them grew. And then now moving over to math, we have, look at this celebration, 29 of them, all right? We grew every single one except for one, which means what happened there? I don't know, but I'm gonna dig in deeper and figure it out. And then 5th grade, out of the 21 in that target group, 17 of them grew.
Question
So,
again.
yep.
Obviously, a lot of, I was gonna say patient data, but student data
Yep.
derived in this. But do you ever see common themes on the non-growers, like attendance
Yes.
is the big thing I'm thinking of, right?
Yep.
You know, that attendance has not been where it was, you know,
Yep.
historically. I would think that
It's
that plays a
from
role.
attendance to behaviors
Sure.
times, and that's why like we brought forward like the rebound room at the intermediate school. So when distracting behaviors are happening in that learning environment, we're just gonna take a little bit of a break but yet come back. And that's used for both general education and special education. And then and 2, you know, in this target group, it is a lot of our students that struggle academically on IEPs, so we're continuing to look at that and revamp things, and we did some really cool things this year with Patricia Kramer and doing small groups and being able to grow that population. So, I mean, that's all within these numbers as well. So it's pretty exciting. And then the last slide is just future of what we're gonna keep doing, and here's what we're gonna keep doing. So it's always going back to our tier 1, what every single student gets, and within that tier 1, it's teaching our standards and making sure that we're doing that at grade level. That's super important. A student can't gain anything if they miss something, so it's important to make sure that that is always our focus, is our tier 1. And then it's continuing to analyze student data from so many different sources. So this is just math. I need to be taking everything, like this is just a piece of data, but yet looked at in many different ways. But we're talking about the formative assessments that are happening within the classroom, to the summative, that's like our big forward exam, all the way to the interim, which we were doing, you know, longer periods of time, but kids get that right away, so they can set goals and teachers can analyze things. And then continuing to provide those targeted interventions. We now have UFly, Bridges for Math. Reflex was a real big thing to helping students get their math facts. And then, yeah, it's the science of reading. It's what Wisconsin is doing. We have all of our intermediate school teachers are trained units 1 through 4 are EOA teachers. I shouldn't say all intermediate school teachers. And then elementary, a lot of them already are doing it, unit 1. So here we go. We're excited about that, and yeah, just continuing to set those high expectations and streamlining things between the two buildings. That's what I got. Yay.
Yay.
Thank you, April.
Amanda? All right, so, stuff at the high school, we're gonna go way back to the last day of school. We had a busy day. We, had a pep rally for our boys tennis state participants and state track, so lots of success out of those 2 programs at the end of the school year. And then did our students of the trimester for PLCs. Summer school has kicked off for us as well. Besides the weight room or like agility stuff, it's not quite as fun at the high school, I'm learning, so. But we have 30 kids there, and some of them are already done, so that's been pretty great, that they came in, did what they needed to do, and then now they're already out there, so. Thanks to Jen Omley for all of her work, cause she's in there, and got some good peer tutors, one in the room right now, helping, so that's been really, really positive. We're Scott and I are meeting a lot right now, trying to figure out some kind of goals for next year, some things we wanna change, and how we run that process through, planning throughout the whole school year next year. One change that we already made was to the schedule, and I don't think we talked about it yet, so we moved WIN from the end of the day to after second period for, tries 1 and 2. Kids are gonna be real upset because they're not gonna be privileges during that time, sorry, but we're gonna focus on some academics, and we know that moving that time to the middle of the day is gonna give us a little bit more valuable time with them. But then trimester 3, also balancing out that we've got 17 bajillion kids gone on certain days for all of the sports, so still trying to balance that to make sure that maybe they're missing that instead of an actual core class. So we will have a little bit different schedule for next year. And I think that is it. Any questions?
I think you kind of covered that as well, so.
Yeah, I covered Scott.
Perfect. Jessie's awesome.
Okay, so Ariel Branham, graduate, 2021 graduate from Osceola, is offering some adaptive swim lessons as part of our summer school options for students that have a little bit more individual need. It's starting out great. The kids are learning a ton because they're able to get a lot of one-on-one attention, and hopefully the goal is to, work on and develop that life skill and some more water safety and knowledge. She's also even incorporating some academic pieces with one of our students, like counting ducks and just some cool things, and she's been awesome to work with, so that's been really exciting. ESY, so our extended school year, so that's a little bit different than just regular summer school options. It's for students that require it kind of based on their IEP needs, if they have a regression of skills, or if it's a key point in development. So we have some of our youngest learners getting some speech services, and then some middle school students working on reading and math and life skills. I also just want to give a big shout out to Steve Leslie for his flexibility and making sure that all students need to be where they are, because these are some, different schedules, and he's been really great to work with for that. And then also at the end of the school year, so Noreen Martin, she's a junior, will be a senior next year, spoke to 5th graders and 8th graders, and then her and I partnered together to do a presentation to parents. Noreen shared her story on self-advocacy and empowerment and some tools for transition buildings, and we're looking forward for additional ways to connect with more parents next year and hopefully keep those presentations going for students as well. So,
I'll just add too that Noreen came and spoke to a bunch of my grade students in St. Croix, and how she presents it was talks about like doing powerlifting and all this stuff. And these kids are kind of sitting there, they weren't told a ton about what they were gonna listen to. And then after like 5 minutes into it, when she reveals like she has an IEP, all these kids are like,
They did the same thing.
Yeah,
Like,
it was just
crazy,
like, oh,
all of a sudden
what?
they just leaned in and, oh, well.
yeah. And to have like, and knowing some of those kids and what some of their disabilities and stuff are, for them to sit there for like a full half hour, not one of the kids made a peep face that, like, if every kid was that attentive in a classroom, it'd be great. So no, and she did awesome over there too, so.
Very cool.
How many came to the presentation?
The parents,
Yeah.
it wasn't highly attended, there was, I think, 4.
Okay.
Shannon?
I just want to take a moment to publicly thank Mr. Rob Schmidt, because I know he knows those type of things. In all seriousness, he stepped in at a crucial time to help us out as an interim director, until we were able to fill that role. We had a lot going on, and he's been able to direct us and keep it all going, so a huge thank you to him. Another thank you to Holly Johnson, she's done an amazing job with the pool participation and staffing. Just some facts that we have, swimming lessons now, this is not including Kids Club, it has 134 swimmers. From lifeguards, we went from 5 to 15. Currently, the Aquatic Center is open 7 days a week for June with lap swim, open swim, aquasize, water yoga, swimming lessons, and adaptive swim lessons. So she's, in the short time that she's been doing this, she's been doing a lot. Lastly, I attended my first WASB Board of Directors meeting last week. I'm pretty excited, it's gonna be fun. One of the things that we talked about, and I don't know if the board really heard about this, but Milwaukee Public Schools has been identified as being very delinquent in regards to their financial statements to DPI. So it's been a hot topic. How this affects other districts is the fact that DPI puts out a July 1st aid estimate, and MPS puts such a large amount of the funding mechanism for the state of Wisconsin that if their numbers are not correct, it puts everybody, all other district numbers in jeopardy. So one of the items that we asked for last week when we had DPI on the line was that rather than just do a July 1st aid estimate and then we hear nothing until October 15th, we're asking that they do a July 1st, September 1st, July 1st, August 1st, September 1st, and October 1st. So that business managers or people in the finance office, it's not a guess, it's not a, we recognize that there's new staff coming into these roles as of July 1st, and some may not know that that July 1st aid estimate can change drastically between July 1st and October 15th. So just trying to put some supports into place for that large piece of budgets for districts. Thank you. Good stuff.
All right, well, I think it's important, along with the team, to say thank you to all of our staff, because they did amazing things throughout the whole year, not just at the end of the year, every single day, but also so did our students. They faced things just like we did, and they made it through, so thank you, students that did that work, because we appreciate it. I mean, we had students giving tours for interviews, we had students show up at our board meetings, we have students that are doing really hard things at elementary school that are hard for them, and I think it's important to acknowledge that they continue to show up and do that too. Yesterday, we had an opportunity as a leadership team to go to the behavioral threat assessment and management training, which I just think it's interesting to tell the story of, it's 25 years since Columbine happened. Which, if you think before 1999, what school safety meant, it was like playground safety. Now school safety means, as a leadership team, you attend a behavior, and I put these on your desk because I think it's important that we talk a little bit about what we learned, but you talk about a behavioral approach to violence prevention. We now lock all of our doors. Now, when we have a situation that has potential for a violent act, we have now a process that we can follow that puts supports in place for students. And so just, if you look at the cover sheet itself, it talks a little bit about the approach, but whenever do we as a school district get into homeland security? So I just think it's the idea of the elevated level that we all need to be at. And then on the second page, just give you an idea of the complex kind of flow chart that we as a team need to know and understand and make sure that we're doing due diligence. Because there are civil cases that are happening with schools. And like one of them recently, I know, parents have been held accountable and they're going to jail for what happened in Michigan. And other school districts have been found 54% liable for the violence that happened. So how are we going to ensure in our school district that we can do everything we can to prevent any kind of act of violence? So I just picked, seven slides out of 247, just for the record, to learn a little bit. We sat for 8 hours as a team, and I think you guys all know my team, and a lot of us don't even have chairs in our office to sit in, we stand at desks. So there was a lot of leg shaking, but we did a lot of learning. But I just wanted to go through types of violence, and I think really you can't read it very well, but there's two different pieces, right? There's the impulsive reaction that students have to having some kind of upset or grievance. Those are words we learned yesterday in order to talk to students. And then you have the people who have a planned predatory nature. Those are very different responses. They really wanted us to make sure as leaders of school districts that we knew and understood that dangerousness is a state of being. It is not a trait that a child carries. So that we have the power to interrupt, to off-ramp any kind of behavior. And that's that third slide there where it talks about the personal grievance. And between every one of those boxes, we have an opportunity to de-escalate and off-ramp and interrupt this cycle, this pathway of violence. And they went through each box and they gave us very specific examples. And we saw interviews with school shooters, and it was very, very heavy and very, very intense. And also with very much purpose as we sat in the room, to the point where who came and saw us? The attorney general drove over from Madison to walk in the room for 5 minutes to say, thank you for being here, and we've got your back, use us. It's pretty powerful. And then if you look on the next page, it helps when you think of what schools are, the mitigators, right? So we know the flexible thinking is really important for students, but we also know developmentally, concrete thinking is a thing. That literally that's where kids are. They learn to think differently as they go through our system, and how can we assist them. The idea of being able to know how to resolve a conflict is abundantly important, and how not to hold things and stay angry about things for years and years and years. They talked about the shooter that showed up in Nashville, had been planning that event for 10 years. That's an incredible amount of time. So then the other part, the next slide that's there, the negligence part, that's us as a school district. Have we done the notifications that we need to do? We understand now what duty to warn means. That's if we share students across districts, we do have PERPA is overseen by an emergency communication, and we need to do that. We need to do better as school districts. Supervision, making sure students have what they need. Staff training, and identification and intervention. The other piece is the next one where you see the head on that slide. Universal attacks and premeditated. But the other piece that really is important is we need to have our students and our staff and our community all know what should be reported and how. Like we already have Speak Up, Speak Out on our web pages, which is the anonymous reporting. And there were school districts in the room that don't use that. So they have to go way back in time. We already have a threat assessment process in place, which we were all kind of sitting at the table going, okay, in kind of the Osceola way, we're a little bit ahead because we have made pieces, but they have other steps that we need to put in place. And the other thing is when you put the plan in place, you have to make sure you follow through. Every time when we say we're gonna check the kid's backpack when they come to school every day, we need to check the kid's backpack every day. It can't be forgotten, and if I'm the one doing it and I can't be there, then number 2 has to know and has to build it in as part of that. And then the takeaways is that everybody plays a role. They showed us, they studied schools that were able to avert school violence and when it happened and how it happened, and how crucial it was that community and parents knew. I didn't know at Columbine, a kid told his parent, and his parent didn't call the school. Parents need to know who they can reach out to, how they can get a hold of us, and we need to be very, very clear on that. And that early detection and reporting is critical, and that all of us in our community need to feel safe when we come to school and how we get there. And then lastly, just another piece, and it was pretty great, because this is just a sample, created a form for us already. But if there's been a person who's been targeted, we also have a responsibility to let them know and help them have a safety plan as well. So it's not just a conversation like, hey, I have nothing to worry about, no, we need to have something in writing. So just so much information, and we have a lot of work to do as a team to take the 8 hours of work and apply it to what we already have and make us better. So I just thought it was really important to kind of walk. I don't know if anybody has anything else to add that was there.
That was a good summary.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all for going and making school safer, because it can always be, we can always do better.
We can always do better, but it is just kind of amazing how much school has changed in 25 years.
And when I thought 25 years, like as soon as you said that, I kind of paused for a second, because it feels like it was yesterday, and it feels like it was 100 years ago all at the same time.
And they did a really nice job of offering the power of, if you do all of the pieces, you can avert, and that's where we want to be. And then lastly, on a happier note, the Osceola Chamber has been doing a lot of work, and they are doing the Celebrate Osceola event tomorrow night. And we have a bunch of school district employees that are nominated for really cool things, like Jen Root for Volunteer of the Year, Legacy Award, Bob Schmidt, not just because you're old, because you're a legacy, and then, the Education Foundation for the Nonprofit of the Year, and then Jackie Burmaking, Sean Carlson, Shelby Ferguga, and Christy Santa for the Educator of the Year.
And yourself.
And Rebecca.
So, that'll be one.
Thank you so much. All right, that'll bring us to Food Service Department report.
It's a tough show to follow.
Sorry.
Oh.
Jan already took your stuff.
Wow, yeah, thunder
Part
staff,
of it.
volunteer staff, it'll just be quick then, right? So I was trying to be geeky with my numbers and like dig in and do the numbers too, and it's a lot of numbers and a lot of acronyms, so I'll kind of glaze over it because it's kind of a glazing view of it, but shout out to the staff. I mean, every year when I type these numbers in, it just amazes me that we served 81,086 breakfasts, and that's just to students. That doesn't include guests, staff, any little snacks or extras. It's just a student's breakfast, 81,000. And I know when I have like a holiday dinner at home and I have to serve like 12, it's kind of frantic and you have to do it fast and you're wondering if you have enough food or, all this stuff. And to think about, really we have, at breakfast time, we have 9 staff here to do that. And then at lunchtime, we had 171,000 some lunches. Again, that's just lunches, not staff, which are usually another 1,000 or so. So those numbers just kind of wow me every year. I just sometimes sit back and think, how do those gals do it? But it's pretty amazing what they do every day, and do it with a smile and keep it going when the show must go on, when things happen and we can't close down the shop because things happen, we still gotta get kids fed. So kudos to my staff for keeping that up. The biggest number and little acronym to know for our department is average daily participation. That's what fluctuates, that's what we look at, because as enrollment declines, obviously there's less students that can come to visit us on a daily basis, so a lot of times that ADP just from decline enrollment is going down. But if we can maintain a percentage of our enrollment at a certain level, then that's kind of our goal. So our goal for ADP is like 70%. That's been kind of, if you look at those numbers across the years, that's kind of been where we've sat. We ended up this year with all of it about 67.7, which is a little bit down. I need to investigate the why of that. One of the things I think is just our opportunities for students. They're able to head out into the community and take part in training programs and other things that long ago weren't as available. Privileges, lots of events and sporting things that we have a lot of kids involved in that we need to figure out how to still get them fed through our program if we can. And then too, we always have that threshold of what can parents afford, and the inflation and things that as our prices go up and food costs go up, what is that threshold that our program just becomes not as affordable to families, especially with multiple children. So I do need to kind of dig into a little bit of why our numbers didn't hit that 70 mark, but that's a goal. And then again, those numbers don't include our entire meal program, because we do serve guests and adults and things outside that. So a couple of things we continue to do with the 4K all day. We used to not serve that population any meals here. But now that they're here all day, we do breakfast and lunch, so that's really helped our breakfast program. As you can see, the numbers have gone up there a little bit. And then we open up breakfast all morning at the high school for those that don't have a full day schedule. So we're gonna continue with that programming, keep that on. The fund balance, it looks really great. It looks like we have a lot of money to spend, and it looks like we're fat and happy. But where that came from is still kind of the leftovers of COVID high-level funding. This year, we still continued the SCA funds, that would be supply chain assistant funds. They were hot and heavy last year, and we received about half of what we received last year for that fund as well this year, but now those have come to an end. So the idea was everybody took a hard hit during COVID. They really tried to bump up the funding, universal free meals for all. We were highly level funded, and now things are continuing to decline back to previous prior to COVID levels of funding. So I just kind of had a little bit of data there as far as a reimbursement level that we got per meals and how it's continuing to decline. Last year we took a significant hit from the paid lunches. I know it sounds like itty bitty, 5 cents, 10 cents, but it does add up after a while, just from a sheer standing of what we are reimbursed for each child meal. Unfortunately, the rates for next school year are not out yet, so there's not really a great way that I can project to say, oh, hey, they're gonna give us a little bit more money, or we're at least gonna stay where we're at. So I don't have those on there for you, but I will let you know. We're kind of waiting until after that July 1st mark as well to find out where we stand there. So the other thing that fund balance needs to cover is obviously our costs that, and I'll kind of get that the next meeting when we talk about rates and reimbursement and what we're looking at to do for our meal cost. But we did budget it for a loss this year. If I look at numbers from last school year, it costs just over $5 for us to make lunch. That's labor, equipment, supplies, food, everything that goes into lunch, it costs just over $5. So anytime we don't get reimbursed up to $5, we lose money. So we have to continue to find where do we get that revenue source from? Is it a la carte sales? Do we increase our prices? But until we hit that $5 mark per meal, we're gonna have to figure out an additional revenue source. So if we're projected to lose money, we're gonna keep kind of, grabbing from that 347, and that's not gonna last real long. So moving on to some sort of positive, but not really. We started this year with only one open position, which we hired right away in October. And so for the first time in my tenure here, we were fully staffed from October to the end of the school year. And like you said, Jen has been an awesome employee. It was super sad news for us that she's making the change, but super great for the district that she's staying with us. And then we also lost a couple other part-time positions that we'll need to fill. So now I have 3 openings again for the fall. And then looking at the way schedules have kind of shaken down, and with the moving of the 5th grade to the middle school, it's a really tight operational challenge for us with the 3 staff that we have in there. So looking at what we might need some additional staffing at that school, at least for the part-time over the lunch period. We did buy some things with that balance that we had, since we did have some additional funding, and really we put off a lot of maintenance and a lot of equipment things that needed to be repurchased or replaced. So having those funds available, we replaced some of our broken things, we added some hot holding carts, we replaced our dish machine at intermediate school, garbage disposal at the high school. And yes, Jan, the freezer is coming. You'll be the first one in it, and we're gonna have ice cream or something. We're gonna go chill in our new freezer.
You've been talking about it for a long time.
We have. It's been a long process. Kind of, is it outside, is it inside? Is it replacement, is it add-on? Is it, how do we access it? Finding a company that wanted to do the whole project versus just the freezer versus the cement. We thought we had it figured out to attach the building, but now there's another glitch in the cement work and some other things, but we're gonna get it done. And so kudos again to Bob for coming back and helping me through that project. But finally made the decision that we're gonna go external, that will add the needed storage that we need. Now it's just figuring out how that actually happens. But then the good news of that is that we can continue to operate with what we have while that's being built and kind of keep things rolling in case there's another glitch in the system of scheduling that. Along with that, we'll have to get additional shelving for inside the cooler. Our transport carts that were heavily utilized during our transition here in the 72 hours, they're old, they're getting worn, the wheels keep breaking and they're falling apart, so we really need to kind of keep up those, because they are heavily utilized. And I think too, we're kind of working through that same kind of process of, okay, here's the age of the carts, we've got a total of 6, we're gonna try and replace 3 this year, 3 next year, look out, and kind of that same project plan of what we're looking at for, our newest building is over 20 years old now, so, the aging equipment will have to get kind of on a timeline as well. And then just a couple, different purchases that we'll need to make because of the transition. We'll need to add some lunch trays and racks and production equipment and things, just moving where the grade groups are and how we do the food production, so that'll cause a little bit of additional funding that will chip into that 347. So that's kind of it for the department update, and then we'll talk about pricing at the next one, right? Unless you have any questions right now before we get that.
Can I just ask you? So what was the fund balance a year ago, do you remember?
The 347 is where I ended the
Oh,
school year.
Of 23?
Yes.
And the projection for this year, are you gonna be down around 300?
I think the projected loss is close to 95, so I'm gonna be closer to the 250 mark.
And the unpaid lunches?
Oh,
is
yes,
that
sorry, I glazed
similar?
right over that one.
Is that similar to a year ago, or has that increased?
It has increased. I would say a year ago, we were close to 5,000, maybe 5,200. But some of that is still remaining from last year. So
Right.
I would say we're still around that 5,200 mark of outstanding balances, but
And we got it paid off 2 years ago? When did, we got it paid off one of the years.
the 2021-22 were the year that everyone was universally free. We had donation funds and different things that we.
A big fundraiser and.
Yes, Tippy Canoes helped out,
Yes.
Lions Club has helped out, but that year that, post-COVID, the 2021, when they went to universal free meals, the donation funds wiped everybody's slate clean, so.
So then do they just stay negative? Like that balance is like, well,
So it's a conversation that we'll have to bring to the board because, you know, at some point we have to talk about, do we write it off? Is there donations that we will accept and clear those accounts? What are we going to do when we do that? It's an ongoing conversation in probably every district, would you agree?
It is, yeah, and the districts that have success are the ones that are willing to cut the kids off and not allow kids in the program. And that's pretty much the only successful way to keep that balance to a minimum.
And we've had lots of conversations about what happens when they're reached this limit, they're still being fed, but there's notifications that go home.
Right, and we continue to do that, we continue to try and work with families, we try and offer, you know, to sign up for the programming that's available, we try and offer assistance for those that maybe don't meet the program requirements, but are just about that level. We do work with them as far as if we've got donations or angel funds out there that try and, work with those families. We try, but, so we're not doing anything, it's just, some are hard to get a hold of and reach out.
There's always those that graduate and then are really hard to.
Yep.
come back from.
Yep. And then once it gets to that certain point where it's so costly, it's hard to get back. So, but we just keep feeding the kids, cause that's our job.
Awesome.
Any other questions?
I do have one question.
No.
Okay, awesome, thanks.
Thank you.
And I think we have approved 24-25 meal prices on our actual agenda tonight.
Correct. Do you want me to address those now or later? I
Um,
can address them now and then.
Go for it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't see anything else, so let's do it.
Okay. So just a overview quick, the items in blue are the reimbursable meals, so that's, anything that's government funded, or that we have, a reimbursement rate for those, and then anything in orange is our à la carte or non-reimbursable meals, so that's where we have to cover full costs, or, then we don't receive the government funding for those items. So I kind of put up
where we are this year, the 23-24 pricing. The reduced rate, we waive that so that we continue to receive the reimbursement from the government for those breakfasts and lunches, or for breakfast, I'm sorry, but the people on the reduced meal plan don't pay for breakfast, so they get that as free. So now with the grade configuration changes and the buildings and how we're gonna be serving kids now, it kind of puts me in a little bit of conundrum as far as their nutritional regulations and how nutrition guidelines are set up. And so trying to figure out, based on the amount of food they're gonna be served, where they're served, how they're served, and our new building configuration, the 6th through 8th grade, or our middle school, and now be 5th through 8th grade, kind of doesn't fit the box so well, for nutrition regulations. And so I'm kind of talking with other schools that are K through 8 programming or have a 5th through 8 configuration, and talking with DPI, they recommended that we would just actually eliminate that pricing category and that nutritional category as well that is currently set up for K through 5 and 6 through 8. So we're gonna be moving toward a 4K through 8 plan, both nutritionally and in a pricing bracket. So, trying to figure out what we do then with the pricing of that. Do we charge more for just this level or less for this level with increasing costs and inflation? And just like I talked about earlier, that we serve a over $5 per person meal, and we're only gonna get somewhere around $3 from the reimbursement level. So where do we come up with that extra money? So looking at the decrease in funding that we got this year, not knowing what we're doing next year, this was kind of the proposed option that we're looking at for pricing, so that we're looking at raising that 4K through 8 level 10 cents, but then not having those grade levels take all of the brunt of our grade level changes, but also adding a little bit more of an increase to the high school level as well. So it's 10 cents for younger grades and 5 cents for the high school. Part of that too, on the bottom it talks about the requirement in the paid lunch equity. Basically, to the point where we charge a full price meal for the paid students, we have to continue to raise money every year to hit that. Because we have that positive fund balance of the 347 and change, we don't technically have to, however, we still have to cover our costs. So we could defer raising prices, but then come next year, the following year, we have to breach that gap and would have to significantly raise pricing then. So the idea is, well, if we can continue to raise prices at a moderate level or minimal level, we continue to move forward with meeting that paid lunch equity requirement. The other thing we look at too is just amount of food taken. You know, where we're at for pricing and does it cover it, and different things like that. So this is kind of the recommendation that I have based on, like I said, DPI's suggestions and nutritional offerings that we're gonna have. And that we kind of offset the decline in funding with the increase in paid meal prices. So that's a lot of information, and I don't know if that makes sense to anybody. But, so please feel free to ask questions, or if you don't agree with our proposed changes.
Is the, when you look at the lunch one in the non-reimbursable $1.75, is that the second entree?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, where did that go?
I kind of assumed, but I wanted to make sure.
I might have gotten a copy and paste situation there. Yes, that is the second entree, sorry. And again, there too, like some of those, rather than having, well, this entree is this much money and this entree is this much money, we average the price out. So some days that won't cover a second entree charge, other days it'll be more than that, but rather than having that computer nightmare of trying to figure out which to charge, we just kind of average priced for a food cost second entree item.
I fully understand why we do these subtle increases,
Mhm.
and I think I've never seen it broken out different in the different age groups, but I think it makes complete logical sense where you ended up, so, I can fully appreciate that, and then, you know, $2.90 always seemed like the oddest price, so.
And I know the survey isn't completely filled out yet, but within our CISA group, there's a survey that has everyone put in their meal pricing for the years, just to see, you know, in this area, are we comparable, are we high, what's everyone charging, how are they doing it?
So now the pricing is in right now, but those that have put in, we're pretty mid-range. Some are lower, some are higher. Most of the districts are a lot higher at breakfast. We're still in the low end there, but I would say we're pretty mid-range for what people are charging for lunches, both at a staff level and student level. I can get you those prices when they're all in
Yeah,
later if you're
love to
interested to
see
see those or where we fall in there.
Be interesting to see what their negative balance is too.
Yeah.
You know, like if their price is lower and their negative balance is lower, or ours is higher and our negative balance is higher.
I think it has a lot to do with like the grade reduced percentages too.
Yes.
So the lower grade reduced compared to, you're at 41%.
41% is only the elementary school. The other schools are closer to 28 or 30, so overall our whole district is about 34%. Luckily, we do actually get a little bit higher level of reimbursement at breakfast because of that over 40%. They consider it a severe need, so for all the students that have breakfast at the elementary school that hit that mark, we receive a little bit additional funding. So that'll decline just a little bit slightly now that we have one less grade level at OES. We'll lose a little bit of funding there, but not huge amounts.
And you help coordinate the take-home backpacks for the weekends too, correct?
Yes.
And how was that this year?
Pretty good. I feel like we were around, maybe, I think we started out a lot more backpacks at the beginning of the year, maybe like 10 or 12 higher. But throughout the school year, we had people that dropped off that felt they didn't need it anymore, or it didn't work for them, or it was a struggle to get it home and get it back. So I think we probably ended around 40 somewhere for the school
Is
year.
that typical?
Pretty much. Yep, I would say between 40 and 50, fluctuating. We'll add some, we'll take some off. Chrissy extended her hours on Thursdays and allowed people to pick up the pack there. That worked better for them. That helped some families out where there was dual families that, a student went to different houses on weekends, so they were able to pick them up on Thursday evenings there. And I think we had 7 families do pick up versus taking home with the student. So that was a nice service that she offered and extended her hours there. But that's Chrissy Cook. I facilitate. I know our secretaries and a couple staff members at each building really are the ones that are chasing the kids down for when they forget it or bring it to the locker, or bus drivers help when it's left on the bus. That I just coordinate the paperwork for that. So
It's getting our kids fed, right, which we
Yes.
know is a basis of having them be strong learners, is they have to be fed, so.
Yes.
and it all comes together and kudos to you and your team, so 81,000 meals is
Mhm.
pretty impressive. Just breakfast, yeah, to start the day.
right.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
with these increases and the reimbursement that you get this year,
Mhm.
will you hit that $5 mark?
No.
You won't, so just even raising it, that small amount doesn't get you to.
No, I would say, where did we come in last year? Was it 356? I think we came in average.
Seems right.
I think was average reimbursement or revenue per meal. There's a lot of other costs. I mean, the food itself has gone up significantly. We're usually trying to operate, or we've operated around 48% food costs, and this year was close to like 54%. And that's not even including any kind of labor, supplies, things like that, that are on top of that. So, once I finish out the year, I can get you the updated, child nutrition report that will tell you exactly cost per meal, revenue per meal, and the breakdown once we get all the numbers in and crunched. But
So the minimum that we can raise it, is that 10 cents?
we can raise it less than that, but their recommendation is to not raise it more than 10 cents.
Okay.
So that's not such a hit to families, especially those that have multiple students. So for the most part, when we do the little paid lunch equity calculator, it might be based on the number of meals and the breakdown of free reduced percentage. They'll say you're required to raise it 14 cents this year. Well, rather than raise it at 14, you can max out at a dime. Or other years, even if you hit that, it says you should raise it 21 cents, we can max out at a dime. So we can raise it less than that or not raise it. Some of school districts have chosen to take their surplus funds and, provide free breakfast to everybody. That is an option, but that would be for a year. And then again, once those funds are depleted, now we're still in that behind the 8 ball, trying to still move to that mark. of matching the reimbursement, and we'd have to still raise prices after that. So, and then we lose that ability to provide any kind of funding for freezers and carts and trays and things that it takes to run a program.
What has the adult guest meal price been historically? I mean, I see that the proposed here doesn't have a change.
I didn't have a change. There is actually another little calculator tool from DPI that we're required to plug in our highest paid meal price for students, and then they match it with the USDA funds and some state funding and the meal costs, and there's a minimum that we're required to hit, or that we have to charge for a non-reimbursable meal. So if we raise it 10 cents or 5 cents, that would raise the minimum price that we have to charge for an adult meal. So I think this year it came out to like $4.66, and rather than charging $4.66. So that was kind of last year, well, you know, where we fell into, so we just kind of went to the nice, I know the secretaries don't like it when they have to deal with pennies and nickels and times when they buy guest tickets, so we just said $4.75, hoping that we would continue to maintain that level of, you know, we still hit that where we're charging more than we're required to charge. Yes, we could up it to 5 and try and recoup some revenue dollars to offset our losses. However, we have people that don't want to spend the $4.75 on the lunch. So charging a $5 lunch, are we gonna increase participation and actually increase our revenue?
No,
I'm gambling that we're not going
exactly
to.
where I was going, cause every time they hand me my quarterback, I'm like, might as well just throw it in there for, you know what I mean? So, but I understand raising it too, then you're gonna lose participation, right?
Yes.
And adult guests would be staff as well,
Correct.
right? That's, I mean, so.
Correct. So at some point, we will get to that point where it won't be $4.66 anymore, it'll be some odd number in the 470s, and then we would probably look at going to the $5 mark.
Did you, I don't think I saw it in here, I would be curious to see how many adult guest meals that you have, like what our staff participation is and,
That's tricky too, because we allow ourselves to all get meals, so that's why there's,
So do they get free meals when they sub?
nothing's free. They choose to sub and we feed
Right.
them.
I can get those numbers for you though, because we code it by building lunch a code count, so I can break that down and get you
Sure.
numbers.
I
of-
mean, I don't know if anyone else is curious in seeing, and I don't want you to do something just on my behalf, but
No.
it's just a curiosity point.
Mhm.
I think I don't work in the buildings, but I would imagine that it is a value knowing that you can go down and get a school lunch, and so.
Yes.
Knowing what the future holds for your fund balance and things, it's, you know, something to think about, so.
Mhm.
So why would you not increase the 9-12 at the same price as the 4 to 8, up to the 10 cents?
Again, we're looking at where I'm at for a food cost, like, I mean, we're not gonna hit that $5 mark, but where we're hitting as far as kind of where I'm losing the money from by changing that price category, and I'm not changing the price category at all for the 9 through 12, other than, I could go 10 cents higher if that would, something that the board would want, but I also feel like I'm trying to mitigate the cost. I'm gonna hit the amount that I've lost from reimbursement by moving the second graders out of that severe breakfast and eliminating that price category is offset by that 10 cents and 5 cents raise. So I could go higher, but trying to look at that as well from a consumer standpoint of, if I have multiple children at the multiple levels, that might just be too much to absorb. Does that make sense? That I'm losing more from a reimbursement level at the lower levels than I am from the upper level.
Does your a la carte do pretty well at high school?
It does, and that's the other pieces, that's where we sell the a la carte is the high school. Last year, I think from catering and a la carte, we were around the $50,000 mark in revenue. So hopefully we'll hit that mark next year. We did really well when the meals were free, because then all the lunch money went to a la carte sales, but.
And I know Minnesota just went to that model, are you hearing any conversations about that as far as?
It's not well supported in Wisconsin.
You have to go through the legislature.
Yes, Yes, and, from a local level, the idea is that it's pushed out to local level, kind of everything, referendums, funding. The idea is that, if your local community wants to support it, that we wanna push that back to local level. So, from a federal level to state level to local level. The feeling is that if people don't qualify for the free and reduced meal plan, that they should be able to purchase their own. So why should the government step in and do that? They did make some changes as far as, the community eligibility programs. They changed some things there, but they didn't change the multiplier. So unless you are at 60% free and reduced, if you're at that level, there was an additional funding opportunity, but we don't pick that. So it's really not financially feasible for us to use that program. But not much movement in Wisconsin. We were hoping, a lot of lobbying from the School Nutrition Association at that level, but we thought maybe two after Wisconsin, or after Minnesota and Michigan, some of the local states. They did it, that maybe there would be pressure, but hasn't seemed to happen yet, so.
What other questions do you have for Susan?
Okay, I'll get you the numbers out for the staff lunches. I have those.
No worries.
Different spreadsheet.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.
All right, that brings us to item 4, which is improving our academic achievement with accountability through data-driven practices. First reading of policies 100, 122, 144.3, 171.3, 55.17, 74.40, 75.40, 75.44, and 83.10.
As you know, we do a Cliff Notes version that tells you exactly why these policies are coming up. So these are not policies that we've chosen, these are ones that have been brought through Neola as far as they've been reviewed by attorneys, and they call it the update. So then they have us look through it and say, okay, what do we want to update if we have it? And if we don't have it, whether we should have it required by statute or not. So first one is definitions, and you can see the why. It was local public office holder or official is added. So anything in green is new language. Red is the struck language. Any questions or numbers on that one?
A lot of them seemed like it was just grammatical changes. So I didn't have any questions as far as those things go. The facility security one, so 7440, that whole line up struck out, and I was just more curious as to that. I mean, obviously that's the recommendation, but just seemed odd to me. The whole first paragraph that was struck out in mine.
Because there is no DTE in the district. Is that what you're talking about? Oh, I'm 7450.
No,
7450?
7440.
7440.
And I'm not overly concerned about it, but they just struck out. And the part that added made perfect sense to me. It added utilizing metal detector, define what that was, where it was. I mean, I can see. And I just didn't, I guess my question was, with the paragraph, is it more so saying that they don't want it to be board derived? Because everything in there is taken out as about the board. But then the next paragraph still has the board, so I was just. Right. It was more just a why. I guess, on that part. And I should have gotten that ahead to you, I apologize.
The one about the building and the equipment is owned by the board, which is not
Right.
Do you remember, April? I don't remember.
Yeah, so that paragraph wasn't taken out during this update, it was done during the previous update, so as we go through the updates, we will align it with what NEOLA currently has. So, let's say it was a part of an update a couple years ago, and we didn't take the update, we try our best to match
Got it.
NEOLA's.
Okay.
So this specific paragraph wasn't removed during this update, it was done previously. It's hard to say exactly what year it was removed, but we do our best to align with what NEOLA has.
Got it. I probably was reading too hard. That was the only one I had a question on specifically.
On the social media, this is social media one. There's it talks about employees in district approved volunteers are prohibited from using district approved social media platforms like to communicate priorities with individual students. So does Remind app, is Remind considered social media? It's not, is it? It can like like it can work with social media, but, cause I was just wondering, I know a lot of coaches use that.
Can it work with social media?
Yeah, if you pay extra, you can have it so that it'll post on like Facebook or Instagram and stuff.
It was about the privately piece, like when we, because we asked that same question, is if if you're using social media, any platform, there's no private conversation that can happen. And we don't have social, like our district approved social media, our district Facebook, nobody has access to have Facebook messaging back and forth between them. But that's a great question, because we then had to define it, so if you go on our webpage, it shows what's defined as our social media, and it's basically, our people don't have access to that.
Yeah, I just brought it up because it was a reminder, I just know like, I used it as a coach or I use it in alternative school. And there will be like an individual just to me on there, because there might be a specific question of, hey, I can't make it to that first one or whatever.
And that is saved in the district, and that's why we want people to use Reminds.
Okay.
It's the text messaging on your own, or having them on Snapchat, not.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
This wouldn't include, which I know it doesn't, but it wouldn't include like group, like club, Instagrams or anything like that that they personally use, right?
It does, or just.
It does not, because it's not a district specific.
So, first readings, we'll come back officially take action on future meetings, questions, thoughts, or other things that pop up after this meeting. Let us know so we can pull it out. Anything else on policy readings? Alright, item 5 is engage in a continuous improvement of student support systems and programs. A is review private school transportation contracts for 23-24. Required by law to reimburse credit. Correct.
And it costs us more money.
Yes. Questions, thoughts on this? Do you have it for an agenda item tonight? Alright, then we'll move on to item B, which is the WASB 2024 Summer Learning Symposium Leading for the Future, July 12th and 13th.
Just want to put it out there to see if there's anybody that was interested in going, so it's a Friday and Saturday in July. And so a lot of it on Friday is artificial intelligence and technology, and I think that actually you can click on no, on the registration information. You scroll down to the registration information.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay.
So there's a Friday agenda and then the Saturday agenda. So it's an all-day Friday, then a half-day Saturday. And we have money in development line for professional development, this will take us into next year. We, from what I understand, we haven't attended this event before.
Correct, and that was I guess my question was, you know, how much do we budget for board development and where are we at as far as?
Well, typically WASB, you know, you pay your dues to WASB and that includes outreach and workshops that they put on, so that's about $6,000 every year. And then we budget, another amount for the state education convention. Typically, we don't use all of that, so that leaves over for for the board to use some of our
Cause I can see the registration cost here, and then, realistically, that it would be hotel costs, food, meals, and transportation costs is enough to go, so.
Yep. Yeah, of course, this is not included in the registration.
Right.
This is outside of that, yeah.
Right. And would this be coming out of this past year's budget, or would this
Next
be
year's.
Next year's.
And like I said, I don't know how we all make these kinds of decisions, so. Looking for insight.
Well, I think the bigger item for me was making sure if we had, you know, an ability to fund it first before we, sought volunteers to go, so. I don't know that anybody needs to stay officially right this second, but,
Is our registration?
that's exactly what I was just thinking, yes.
The 21st.
And we can get a refund
So
through
next
July
Friday.
2nd. So we can certainly discuss offline who would like to go, and if it's a quorum that goes, we'll have to post it.
Right, and that's, I would encourage you to look closely at what the topics are and what we want to learn and be able to bring back from it. So there's some, I saw a couple attendance pieces there too.
Alright. If there's nothing more on this, we'll take 6 minutes before we start our meeting.